My thanks again to Dr. Lillian Glass. Let's stick with this idea of body language during the debate. Here with us is Associate Research Scholar and Lecturer in Politics and Public Affairs at Princeton University, Dr. Lauren Wright, and comedian, political commentator, and host, Tell Me Everything on Sirius XM Progress, John Fugelsang. Guys, welcome back. John, Biden's composure is what everyone seems to be talking about. Can you talk to me about the disconnect of what people see versus what people hear?
Sure. We saw an 81-year-old man with a stutter and a cold have a very off night, not be focused, not be on his game, certainly not be the dynamic 81-year-old we saw at the State of the Union, and give one of the worst debate performances in modern memory. We heard Donald Trump lie over 30 times about the most preposterous subjects, from everyone being behind the repeal of Roe v. Wade, straight through lies about Charlottesville, lies about his record, taking credit for economic trends that began under Barack Obama, a nonstop torrent of lies. But we're talking about how the old guy might need to drop out because he's not fit.
And to your point, I just want to point out to our viewers, fact checkers from both sides said that former President Trump lied 30 to 50 times compared to Biden, who they say lied about 9. Just wanted to share that with our viewers. Lauren, let's talk about the issues now. There was a back and forth over who handled the economy better. We knew that was going to happen. How did Trump do defending his policies when he argued his tax cut actually hurt the economy more than it helped?
It depends on the context, because when Trump is talking about the economy compared to any other traditional politician, he sounds like he doesn't have a hold on the facts. It's pretty basic. It's a pretty broad brush. But to be honest, Biden did such an abysmal job defending his economic record. And most people agree that Republicans are more trustworthy on the economy. They liked the Trump economy better. They blame Biden for inflation. And so Trump really didn't have to set a very high bar. He didn't really have to talk about, who caused the inflation. Was it the $3 trillion he injected into the economy or the $6 trillion Biden did? It just was not a detailed, substantive discussion, and it did not have to be, and that absolutely benefits Trump.
And I would blame the moderators for that as well. I mean, inflation is a worldwide concern,
right,
and America is noteworthy in that we have recovered better from COVID inflation than all of our...
Oh, but that's not apples to apples, you know that.
All of our G7 capitalist allies have not recovered from inflation as well as we. If you were watching that debate, because the moderators applied no context, you would think inflation was something that only happened here, so logically it must be the fault of this old man.
Well, we have cities in California that are bigger than nations in Europe, and we have the most entrepreneurial country on earth. And even the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis has shown research that suggests that at least a piece of the inflation was this New Deal times 8 sized injection of money into the economy in response to
COVID. The inflation has been worldwide. All of our capitalist allies have struggled with it. Our recovery has been better than our G7.
I love that we can get into the details.
Yeah. I mean, the debate couldn't. We can.
I know, exactly.
We're doing better right now than some of the moderators. A key issue was women's reproductive rights. Trump made it clear where he stands. I want to play something from the former president. I'll talk to you on the other side.
They will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
Okay, fact checker said that is wrong. That is a lie. Why did Biden not say something back? Also, Biden said something interesting. He said, if I'm reelected, I will overturn Roe v. Wade. He's in office now. Why not do it now? Two-part question.
Re-elect Roe v. Wade?
Yes.
Well, no. What he meant to say was, if I'm elected, I will codify Roe v. Wade, but he would need to have a Democratic Congress to do that.
Good
so
point.
It was a bit more of a false promise than anything else, or a braggadocious promise. Donald Trump began his political career with a racist lie that the first black president wasn't one of us. And he has his lies he does for the rallies that the people eat up, like they give birth to babies and then they wrap them in swaddling clothes and murder them. I've never heard him tell this joke around a room full of grown-ups. He did it this week, and the grown-ups let him. Infanticide is illegal in all 50 states. Nobody does this. However, by Donald Trump playing King Solomon and saying, we're going to let some states have abortion, some states not, he's alienated the anti-abortion people who he needs, and he's alienated the independents who he needs by more or less not taking a position on abortion, having no core value on it, saying, you guys do it, you guys don't do it. He's trying to be everything to everybody, and that's not pleasing the evangelicals.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.